My name's Tanya, and just like Lauren, one of my favorite things to can and to snack on is kosher dill pickles. And with the Ball Kosher Dill Pickle mix, it makes it super easy. And of course, I think canning's easy anyhow. But if you've never canned, I'm going to hopefully show you how easy it is, and especially using a mix like this. Before I start canning, I always like to go through and make sure that I read through the recipe and that I have all of my ingredients around me. And I also like to go through and ensure that I have all of my equipment, that it's clean and it's working. So let's actually start with that. I'll let you know that, as you can see here on my stove, I have a couple pots going. The large one here is a hot water bath canner. Pickles are high enough in acidity that means we don't have to worry about pressure canning. We can use it in a hot water bath. A hot water canner sounds complicated, but it's really not. It's basically a nice heavy bottom steel pan with a good heavy lid. I love the Ball canner because it has a clear glass lid that allows you to see down inside and watch your jars and make sure that everything's boiling. The other part that goes into making a pot a canner is making sure that you have a rack. This rack is going to keep all of your jars off of the bottom of the pan, and it's also a really nice, easy way to put your jars down in and be able to lift them out when you're done canning. Don't worry, I'll show you all that here in a bit. The other thing that I have on my stovetop is an empty saucepan. That's what we're going to be making our brine in. Some other regular household kitchen items that you want to have in this recipe are things like a spoon, so we can use to stir our brine. We are going to need a ladle so that after we make our brine, we have something to get out of the pot and pour it down inside the jar. We have a knife, of course, to cut our pickles. We're going to make pickle spears today rather than pickle slices. Of course, you can do any chop of your pickles if you would like. Some measuring cups and some measuring spoons. And the few canning specific items that you want to make sure you have are one of my favorite. Simple tool that can save you a lot of steps and a lot of heartache. It's a two-part tool. It's a bubble freer on this end. Basically looks kind of like a plastic knife. That's going to be the tool that we use in order to go around and make sure that no air is stuck inside our jar. Air is a great place for bacteria to hide, and as long as we bubble free it, and we're going to release all those bubbles, we're going to help prevent any bacteria from being trapped in there and also making sure that our food is safely preserved. The other side, or the other part of our canning tool, is the stair step end that you see. That's going to help us measure our headspace. Headspace is basically the empty space between the top of the ingredients in your jar and the very top rim of the jar itself. It's a specifically measured amount for any tested recipe to make sure that you have enough room for the food to expand and the lid to come back down during the processing part. Some other jar-specific tools that you want to have. This is a super cool, handy tool that just came out. It's the SureTight band tool. Some of you saw Jessica use it earlier. It both helps you seal your jars and make sure that they're tightened to the right amount. That way you don't have to worry about having under tight or too tight of jars. It also helps you open up your jars. And again, I'm going to show you how to use all of these tools here in a bit. Another handy tool is a funnel. Early versions of the funnel were not collapsible, which means it almost always, I don't know about you if you have one, but it always got stuck in my utensil drawer, and I would open it and start arguing with it and get angry. So they solved it. Look what they did. Super cool. It collapses flat and no more arguments with your kitchen drawer. And it's wide enough that you can fit things like half tomatoes, which you'll see us use later on today, pickle slices, and even half peaches I fit through here. So it is nice, and it fits your traditional size jar as well as your wide mouth jars. And our last canning specific tool that you want to make sure that you have that'll help you get the job done is a jar lifter. I have my jars sitting in a crock pot over here. That's going to bring them up to temperature. It's going to help make sure that, for one, even though I've cleaned my jars, I want to get them into some hot water to ensure that they're sterilized and safe and clean. But it also is going to help soften the top rim of the jar so that when we marry it with the lid, it's going to create that good seal. And no business sticking your hand in a crock pot of hot water. Just use a jar lift for that, and you squeeze it around your jar, lift it up, and use that to put down in your canner, and reversed when you're all done canning. So those are our canning specific tools. With pickles, of course, we need cucumbers, so they're our star that we have. And R.A. Bennett Farmers Market and got a good amount of pickles for us to use today. When it comes to picking your cucumbers for pickles, pretty much go with the size of whatever you want to make it in. If you want a nice big slice to maybe be able to fit on a patty and you just want one slice, go with a larger cucumber. If you want small ones that will fit nice and neat in like a grilled cheese or something, then go with some smaller slices. The smaller you get with a cucumber, about 6 inches is a really good size to use for it. It's going to make sure that you don't have big chunky seeds in there. The seeds can turn bitter over time, so a 6-inch cucumber is a really nice pickle to use. Any questions about the equipment so far? Okay, well let's start canning and making our pickles. The first thing we want to do is go ahead and get our brine started. So with our brine today, just a couple easy ingredients. I already have 2 cups of water pre-measured. Gonna put that in my stock pot. You also want to use white vinegar. I always love to use Heinz white vinegar. It never seems to go cloudy and it has a really nice, clean, rich taste. So I've got 1 cup of white vinegar that's going to go in my pot. And already pre-measured 1/4 cup of the Ball Kosher Dill Pickle mix. It has all of your seeds in there as well as the salt, and it has pickle crisp in there. Pickle crisp is a really cool ingredient. You can still buy it individually in stores just as the pickle crisp. Or if you use the pre-made mix, it's in there. And what that ingredient does is it helps ensure that anything that you're pickling, whether it's cucumbers or cauliflower or carrots, it's going to make sure that they have a really good crunch, which is one of the favorite things that I have about pickles. So we put all of those guys into the pan. We're going to put this up on the burner and get that heated. For our brine, once it's in the sauce pot, you just want to stir it and bring it up to a boil. That's going to do a couple of things. It's going to dissolve any of the salt or any of the ingredients that are in there. It's also going to help, of course, mix them up and make sure that you have a good, rich, consistent brine throughout. Let that heat up for a little bit. Meanwhile, I mentioned we are making pickle spears. So let me go ahead and show how to prep your cucumber for your pickle spears. Cucumber has 2 ends, of course. One is the stem end and the other is the blossom end. The stem end is the end that you want to make sure that you remove. The stem, if you keep that on there, it has some enzymes, and that's where the ripening agents come from. So leaving it on and then putting it in your jar, what's going to happen is it's going to continue to release those enzymes, and you'll go to pull out your beautiful pickles and they'll be soggy and kind of mushy. So that's the only end that we need to remove. And to cut your spear, it pretty much works. You just cut it lengthwise and then lay it down flat and cut it lengthwise again. Now, I cheated a little. I made sure that I picked through and showed you all the straightest cucumber. However, I should let you know that if you're like me, most of the cucumbers that you get at market or most of the cucumbers that come off your vine tend to be not so straight. Just take your blade around and follow that through the curve if you're making pickle spears. Of course, if you're making just a sliced pickle or a relish, then go ahead and chop that up otherwise. I also tend to make different types of pickles, so if I pick all of my cucumbers and I see in my basket that I have some nice straight cucumbers and then guys like this, I'll save these for when I'm making my relish or when I am making my slices, and then save the straighter ones for the spears. All right. Got them prepped for you. What we're needing for this recipe is 3.5 pounds, roughly, of our cucumbers. Those are already prepped for us. Some of you saw Jessica earlier use a flex batch of pectin. The pickle mix comes in flex batch as well. And what that means is if you have lots of cucumbers, 10, 20 pounds, and you're going to be pickling for a while, then you have all the mix that you need in here, and you just measure it out based on the recipe to fit that volume. If you only have enough cucumbers to maybe say 2 or 3 jars, which is what we're doing today, you have that as well. You don't have to worry about opening up one package and then trying to do the conversion. They've already done that for you. It's in here. All right. We are making a raw pack pickle, And what that means is we're going to take raw food and put it into our hot jar. The jar that we're using is a wide mouth, quart-sized jar. You can do pickle spears in a pint jar, and you can do it in a traditional mouth jar. It's just the quart size is going to give you plenty of room to get your hand or your utensils down in there in order to lay all of your cucumbers nice and neat in the jar, so you can really utilize all the space that's needed in your jar. It also is going to, with the wide mouth, give you plenty of space to actually get in and work to put all of your cucumbers in there. I mentioned that I already have some jars hanging out in our crock pot, getting sterilized and getting nice and warm. This is that jar lifter tool again. Going to use the jar lifter. Now, if you don't have a crock pot, don't worry. You can go ahead and have your jars heating right along with your water that's heating up in your canner, in your basket. And you just lift them out one at a time and fill the jars, or at least this way it's already set aside for you. When you use your jar lifter, you're going to lift up and pour gently to get all that hot water out of there. And holding on to it, it squeezes. So I don't know if you saw that, but as soon as I let go, it just releases from the jar. So it's not like any kind of contraption that you have to bend something or use a lock. You just squeeze and it simply holds nice and tight onto your jar. When it comes time to lay our cucumbers in there, it's a little warm. Get a towel here. I like to lay my jar on the side and then lay my slices down in there. My husband says that I end up packing pickles much like it's an art. He says I'm a little meticulous about it. I guess that's true. But you don't have to be particular with your pickles if you don't want to. If you're canning these for a gift to give to somebody, you probably want to take a couple moments or two to go ahead and make sure that you put them in there nice and neat and tidy for someone. Get all of those in there. All right, now that my jar's filling up, I can go ahead and set it up straight. Find a smaller one to fit in there. The volume that we're looking for between both the cucumbers and the brine is a 1/2 inch headspace. And again, that's where our handy Headspace tool will come in. I don't think I have room for any others. That's good. So 1/2 inch for our pickles is right here. And what we do is with that 1/2 inch, I put it on the top rim of the jar where that measurement is. And then I want to make sure that I'm free and clear of any food from the bottom of the measurement tool. I'm free and clear with all the pickles as I figured I would be. Now it's time to fill up with my brine. Get a nice facial while you're making pickles too. All right, this is where your funnel is really going to come in handy. You don't have to worry about getting your countertop all sticky. Put your funnel down in there and just start ladling your brine. Any questions while I'm filling this jar about the pickles or the pickle mix? All right. Yes.
Do they sell that blue measuring thing separately over there?
Oh.
Do they sell the blue plastic thing, measuring thing over there at the shop?
Oh, okay. So the question is the bubble remover and the measurement tool sold here in the orchard shop? It's in the utensil set. So the utensil set, I believe, will give you everything from the measurement tool to the funnel, as well as the jar lifter. That's also included in there. Great question. Yeah, it's important to know where you can get your tools from. I'll get a little more brine in my jar. The other nice thing that I love about the Flex Batch is the Flex Batch allows you to make a little extra brine. One of the things that I always try to remind people about canning is that you're dealing with food and it's not exact. As you all know, that every cucumber is not going to come off the vine the same exact shape or volume or size. Same thing with tomatoes or anything else that you're canning. So a recipe may call for X amount of pounds of cucumbers, and by the time you cut off any bad spots or cut off the ends, you may have a little extra room in your jars, and instead of rushing to go find extra cucumbers, you have extra brine that you can go ahead and fill your jar with. So I always suggest make a little extra brine.
We have a question from the audience.
Oh, great.
Hi, we normally ask how long they'll last in the jar, but I was curious, how long before you can eat them out of the jar? Like, how long does it take for the flavor to develop in the jar?
Great question. Yeah, certainly this isn't something that we want to open the jar up today and eat them. You certainly can. It's just going to be a cucumber that is pickle flavored. Letting your pickle, any pickle product, is really best after 4 to 6 weeks. You want to give it time for all that vinegar to soak into the fruit. You want to also make sure that it has time to soften, because there is a little bit of a texture difference between cucumber versus pickle. So great question. Get a little bit more in there. The funnel is also really nice because it fits down inside the jar, so you don't have to worry about knocking it over. If you're like me at home at some point in the middle of canning, a kid has a question, one of my kids will come up and ask me, and I'm like, you turn it around. So again, I'm finding my half-inch Headspace, half-inch measurement on there. All right, a little bit more. And voila. The other end that I mentioned is the bubble freer. So now that I have that filled up, I want to make sure that all of the air, as I was packing those cucumbers in there, chances are we've trapped some air. So it's nice and slender and it's tapered. That's going to help me go down along the side of the jar between my cucumbers and the jar, and I'm just going to pull a little bit toward the middle. That's going to push the cucumber just enough to get any air bubbles free. I already have a few popping up. At some point, I don't know if you folks can see that, I have one cucumber who's trying to escape. That's going to happen. You just push it back down. And I find that the measurement end works really nice. It kind of grips the food. If you have any escapees, you can put them back in their place. All right. So hot jar, hot brine, raw cucumbers. We are very close to making pickles. All right. Let's go ahead and get these guys shoved back down. I always recommend you want to make sure that even though we've measured before, measure again, because sometimes if your air bubbles were large enough and it's kind of burped and let enough off, your volume, your level's going to go down. So you may have to add a little bit more, but we're looking good. Don't want to just slap a lid on here. Even though I use the funnel and it helped keep my jar nice and clean, as I was moving things around and pushing some of those escapees back in, I've gotten some brine on there. No business in spending all this time, as easy as it is, and then not having your jar seal. So cleaning off the top rim of your jar is going to ensure that you have a good seal. I'm just using a damp towel or a damp dish rag, and I'm going around and around and around using a clean spot on my rag each time. And now it's time to marry it with the lid. The lid that we're using, this is a 2-piece lid. What that means is the actual lid part, see if you guys can hear this, that clink. We are going to know that we have a seal because this will pop down. It's just like so many other commercial made items that have a good tight seal on it. This is going to let us know that it's sealed. It also has our sealing agent going around. That's that red ring that you see in there. That's going to marry with the nice hot edge of our jar. We're going to put that in place. And the second piece is our band. The band has sadly one job, and its job is to hold this lid into place during processing. Kind of makes the jar look pretty if you give it to a friend, but other than that, this is a multi-use thing. This one is not. This is a one-use thing, folks. Please don't use it again. It is a nice sealing agent on there, but it's only job is to seal once, and then you can get rid of it. So we're going to use that part once. The jar and the band, we're going to use as many times as we need. Put that right down the middle. Just loosely put that on there, and then that's where we're going to go back to this Sure-Tight band tool. Made for both traditional jars as well as our wide mouth jars. You're just going to plop that right on there. Close it up. And there are 2 arrows on here. My 2 arrows need to meet up. So I'm just going to crank this until my 2 arrows meet. And that lets me know it's tightened. My husband once in a while will help me can, and he has stronger hands than I, like a lot of husbands probably do. And I always tell him, no, you're tightening it too much. And he says I'm tightening it too loose. I have a feeling this is going to save some of those arguments, some of those discussions. Now we're ready to go ahead and put our jars into our canner. Again, this has been boiling away. That nice hot water is ready. We're going to put our basket, has these handles made so that you can plop it halfway in. Using our jar lifter again, we're going to squeeze right around the shoulder, right around the neck of our jar, and gently put that into our canning rack. And then if I had other jars, I'd go ahead and fill up from there. Using these handles, I'm going to just release it until it goes to the bottom, and those handles will just fall down naturally. Put the lid on. Our pickles today, the processing time is 15 minutes. Obviously, we're not going to have time to do a full processing, so voila, 15 minutes has gone by. Once your 15-minute timer goes off, what you want to do is go ahead and turn off the burner, wait 5 minutes. Folks, this is kind of really hot water, and what's going on inside your jar is also really hot. Don't go flinging the lid off and start taking your jars out. Give it time to relax and rest, and then come out onto your countertop. It's also a big temperature difference between what's inside your jar and what's out here on your countertop, and you don't want to have any kind of thermal shock going on with taking a hot jar out. So we'll pretend that it's rested for our 5 minutes. Go ahead, and these handles are handy again, just to lift that up. Use our jar lifter. And when your jars are all ready, you can sit them on your countertop, or I always recommend sit them on a towel. Now when you take it out, it is going to have some water on the lid. And I watch people do this all the time. It's our natural inclination, I guess, to lift the jar up and tilt it to get all that water off. What happens is you could potentially get some of your brine or whatever's in your jar between the jar itself and the lid. That's going to mess up the seal that you're trying to make. So don't worry, it's going to evaporate off, and if it doesn't, use your tea towel. It's straight up, straight down. Okay? When they're all out on our tea towel, you want to wait a good 12 to 24 hours and let your jars seal. How you know that they are sealed is that, get my dummy here. Once your jar is all cooled off after 12 to 24 hours, what you're going to do is take that band off, wipe your jars down. Sometimes some stuff will leak out, and also if you have really hard water, it's going to build up some calcium. You can use some vinegar to help wipe that off. Keep your jars nice and clean, and when you're ready to tell that it's sealed, what you do is 2 different steps. You can lift up on this, and if you notice, it's not going to come off. The other thing is, remember that pop sound? Pop sound is gone. I don't have that anymore. It's concaved in here. It lets me know that my seal is made. By any chance, if you happen to pull your jars out, you do the test after they've cooled 12 to 24 hours, and you find out that they haven't sealed, no worries. 3 weeks or so in your refrigerator, these guys are going to do just fine without a seal, or you can can them again. You don't have to worry about taking them out. What I do recommend is you take off the lid, wipe down the rim, and use a new lid, and go through the processing time again, and chances are that would have taken care of it. And sitting for 4 to 6 weeks, like we talked about earlier, so that all of that brine can soak into your cucumbers and magically turn them into lovely pickles. And beyond that, they can store in your pantry in the jars for about 1 year, if they last that long. I don't know. They never last that long. Oh, we've got a question over here. Okay.
Before, whenever I've done it, I've always filled the water up in the canner to cover the jar. But do you really have to do that?
Oh, great question. So I don't know if everybody heard that, but when your jars are heating, whether it's in a crock pot or in your actual canner, do you have to have enough water to cover the empty jar while it's sterilizing and coming up to temperature? Oh, the full jar.
Full jar.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and finish. Yes, when they're getting sterilized, you want to make sure there's enough water to cover the whole jar. But then also, when it comes time to put your filled product jar into the canner, yes, you want to have a good 1 to 2 inches of water to cover the top of the jar. That's going to make sure that all of the hot water is surrounding all parts of the jar to help sterilize. Great question.
Sterilize the lids.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Hear you say that.
Yep, I'm glad you brought that up. Her question is, do you have to sterilize the lids? Wash with hot soapy water? Yes. But as far as putting them into the canner, into the hot water, Jardin has done some tests and they found that it really doesn't make a difference. That's something that's brand new. You don't have to worry about putting these into hot water and fishing them out. You can just leave them on your tea towel. If it makes you feel better.
That's just one step I don't have to do.
Right. Yeah. See, even easier. I told you it's easy, right?
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Yes. Oh, we've got a question over here, Kristen.
How long do you need to leave the band on?
Oh, great question. So she asked, how long do you need to leave the band on after it's sealed? Well, I've let them cool for that 12 to 24-hour period and then take the band off. From there, that's where you'll wipe it down and do the lift to make sure that it has in fact sealed. But yep, if you're like me, especially this time of year, you have other things to put this band to use for to can other goodies, which we're going to do later on here in a bit. So, any other questions? All right, we do have some samples of the Kosher Dill Pickles. So Holly will come around and share those with you. Certainly, you can always make your own pickle mix as well. And again, I always recommend using that pickle mix or pickle crisp to ensure a nice crisp pickle. But why? This is already made for you. It's already pre-mixed. You don't have to worry about either going through your pantry or going to the grocery to find all the ingredients, your salt, your seasoning mixes in here, your dill, all of that. So one-stop shop in the jar. Yeah, I see some smiles. Very tasty. That nice little pucker lip lets me know that everybody's eating pickles.
Now the dill pickles,
really
they don't have the sharp. So the dill pickles don't have the high sugar content, does it?
Great question. So sugar content on the kosher pickles, I'm guessing you're asking compared to bread and butter. Yeah,
yes.
Bread and butter is the flavor variety that you make more of like a syrup brine rather than just a straight vinegar brine. So yeah, we didn't add sugar in this. There's a little bit of sugar, I believe, in the seasoned mix, but it's not at the high volume that you usually find with a bread and butter pickle. So great question. If you're watching your sugars,
yes.
A kosher dill pickle or just a straight dill pickle in general is going to be better than that bread and butter.
Also, I had some pickles turn soft, and it must have been because I didn't cut off the ends.
That's probably why. And if you're going through or somebody's helping you in the kitchen, maybe a child or a spouse or somebody, go ahead and play it safe. Tell them just cut off both ends. Especially if this is your first time canning and you're not super familiar with which end is which, yeah, cut them both off. It's not going to hurt either way. It will hurt, however, as you found, if you leave that stem end on. It'll soften them up. Any other questions? All right, great. So just to review, the pieces that you want to make sure that you are only using once would be the lid. Everything else you can use multiple times. Your jars, you just want to wash them. You want to check and make sure that there aren't any nicks or cracks in them, whether it's a brand new jar or an old jar. It's going to last you a long time, but in case you end up drinking lemonade out of them during the summer, they could get a nick out of them. So when it comes time to harvest your produce and start putting up for the end of the year, check them over. Run your fingers around the top, hold them up through the light, make sure that everything's off of there and in good condition. And your bands. You want to make sure that your bands are nice and clean with soapy water, no rust, no bends, no twist in them. You'll find that if there is anything wrong with your band, when it comes time to screw it down, it's gonna catch. So check those out and make sure that you have a good, safe seal. I'm going to go ahead and turn my burner off here. Make sure that that's not getting too violent. Any other questions? All right, great. The wide mouth jar not only comes in the quart like we used today, but it also comes in a pint size. So if you just eat a handful of pickles, or maybe you live by yourself, you don't have a lot of cucumbers, whatever it may be, the pint-sized jar is going to work for you. And again, using a wide mouth is a really nice thing to have when it comes to pickles or larger food that you want to put in. Later on today, we're going to use a traditional mouth for some of the other products. They're just a little bit easier to dump out, but a wide mouth is going to give you a lot of space to get in there and get the produce back out. If you were curious, the flex batch of the dill pickle mix, it makes up to 14 quarts. So if you are a major canner, like myself, I can a couple hundred jars a year of various produce. This is another nice thing about it, is that it's going to last you throughout your whole canning season and make sure that you have enough of the mix for all of those jars, rather than opening up a variety of small packages to put all of your brine and your mix together. And like I mentioned earlier, it's going to allow you to make extra brine. Speaking of extra brine, we have here in a moment somebody coming up to give us a couple ideas of what we can do with our pickles, and the brine included. We want to make sure that the brine isn't left out. That's all the flavor. Why toss it out? You can use it for things, and that's what we're going to learn from him.